You already know cancel culture exists, you've seen it. The viral takedowns, the comment wars, the career-ending headlines. But what's more dangerous is what you don't see. The quiet edits before you speak. The careful rewrites of your truth. The moment you swallow your words. Not because you're wrong, but because you're afraid. Afraid of being misunderstood. Misquoted. Labeled. Exiled. So you nod along. Laugh politely. Stay agreeable. Not because you agree, but because disappearing feels safer than being real. Because blending in buys you time, approval, survival. But at what cost? This video isn't about politics. It's not about sides. It's about something deeper, the war inside your own voice. And a question you may have never dared to ask. What if the real rebellion is simply refusing to disappear? Nietzsche didn't believe in villains. He believed in herds, not cows, people, us, you and me, when we trade our judgment for safety, when we stay silent, not out of wisdom but out of fear. He called it slave morality, a system built by the powerless to make power itself look evil, to turn courage into arrogance, to turn difference into danger. Cancel culture didn't invent this. It's just the latest mask. A moral game where everyone wants to look good, but no one dares to be true. Nietzsche saw this pattern rising in society. People would stop thinking for themselves. They'd choose comfort over confrontation, consensus over truth, virtue over vitality, and worst of all, they'd celebrate it. He wrote, "Morality is the herd instinct in the individual. You see it everywhere, in meetings where no one challenges the obvious lie, in group chats where silence is safer than honesty, in families where truth is too expensive to say out loud. So if you've ever asked, why do I feel anxious just for being different? That's not your flaw. That's the herd pressing in." This isn't about politics. It's about psychology. It's about what happens to your mind when the crowd becomes God. Nietzsche didn't want you to rebel against the group just to feel edgy. He wanted you to see the group for what it is, a survival machine. One that fears your freedom more than your failure. And the moment you stop playing that game, you stop being invisible. You ever feel that tight grip in your chest when a room goes quiet after you speak? That split-second scan of every face, looking for signs, approval, rejection. Nothing? That's not just awkwardness. That's your primal brain sounding an alarm. Thousands of years ago, getting kicked out of the tribe meant death. No fire, no food, no protection. So your nervous system learned a rule. Don't be different. Blend in. Smile when others smile. Stay silent when others speak. Cancel culture isn't new. It's ancient fear wearing a modern hashtag. But Nietzsche's brilliance was this. He didn't blame the crowd. He asked, why are you so willing to shrink? Let's decode that. The psychology behind cancel culture isn't about morality. It's about control. Psychologists call it conformity pressure, the urge to adapt your behavior to match the group, even when the group is wrong. In 1951, Solomon Asch ran a famous experiment. Participants were asked to match line lengths. The answer was obvious. But when others in the room intentionally gave the wrong answer, most people conformed, even when they knew it was false. Why? Because isolation feels more dangerous than being wrong. Because the pain of being excluded outweighs the shame of being dishonest. Now take that mechanism, multiply it by a global internet, add reputation, jobs, and identity into the mix. That's cancel culture. It's conformity, backed by the threat of exile. But Nietzsche didn't stop at describing the problem. He diagnosed the hidden sickness beneath it. Resentment. He called it ressentiment. A deep, unspoken hatred of strength, masked as morality. It works like this. You feel powerless. But instead of confronting that feeling, you turn it into a virtue. You say, that person is arrogant. Why? Because they didn't apologize for being bold. You say, that idea is dangerous. Why? Because it made you uncomfortable. Suddenly, fragility becomes sacred, sensitivity becomes status, and silence becomes violence. But here's the paradox Nietzsche exposed. The more we elevate fragility, the more fragile we all become. Because now, everyone walks on eggshells. No one speaks first. No one risks. No one creates. You've seen it. A classroom where no one raises their hand. A workplace where innovation dies in the name of playing it safe. A friend who ghosts you after a single disagreement. This isn't compassion. It's cowardice wrapped in righteousness. And Nietzsche warned what comes next. When a society punishes strength long enough, it starts to worship weakness. And that weakness grows not into peace, but into quiet tyranny. Here's what's worse. You begin to self-cancel. You anticipate the criticism before it happens. You edit your thoughts mid-sentence. You bury your instincts under layers of acceptable behavior. That's not maturity. That's mental imprisonment. Nietzsche's ultimate question wasn't, what will they do to you? It was, what will you do to yourself to stay liked? And here's the hard truth. When you betray your own voice to avoid rejection, you don't become safer. You become invisible. But let's get even more personal. Think about the last time you disagreed with someone. Did you pause, not to reflect, but to calculate whether it was worth the risk? Did you hold back, not out of kindness, but out of fear of losing status? That's not morality. That's anxiety in a moral costume. And it's draining you. Because no matter how much you conform, it's never enough. There's always a new standard, a new rule, a new line you didn't know you crossed. The herd doesn't offer peace. It offers endless negotiation. So what's the alternative? Nietzsche didn't say be rude, he said be real. Because the herd doesn't fear cruelty. It fears clarity. People who say what they mean. People who don't shrink to fit. People who don't play moral dress-up to gain applause. That's why the herd turns on them. Not because they're evil, but because they're free. And freedom is contagious. You don't fight cancel culture by screaming louder. You dismantle it by refusing to play. When you stop needing their approval, they lose their power. When you speak from truth instead of fear, you become immune to erasure. And when you choose integrity over image, you don't become less lovable. You become unforgettable. Now ask yourself, are you willing to be misunderstood if it means becoming who you really are? Let's be honest. Breaking from the herd sounds poetic. Until you try it. Then it feels like exile. You speak up. You set a boundary. You hold a different view. And suddenly, people look at you like you're radioactive. So how do you live in truth without burning your life down? How do you stay grounded when the world wants you to kneel? Nietzsche had an answer. But it's not comfortable. It's not soft. It's called the will to power. Most people think power means domination, control, ego. Nietzsche meant something different. He meant the power to shape yourself, to be the sculptor of your own soul, to look at your instincts, your fears, your dreams, and say, I will not betray this. This is the opposite of victimhood. It's radical responsibility. You stop blaming the crowd. You stop negotiating your truth. You stop begging for understanding. You start becoming who you were before the world told you who to be. But that shift doesn't happen in a day. It begins with micro decisions. Saying no without over-explaining. Asking a real question in a room of silence. Choosing clarity over likability. Each time you do, you forge a new identity, not the one they approve, the one that burns, the one that glows. This is what Nietzsche called becoming who you are. But here's the twist. When you stand in your truth, you will lose things. Status, friendships, comfort. Yet what you gain is priceless. Self-respect, mental strength, a center that doesn't shake when others frown. You move from reaction to creation, from audience to author, from echo to voice. You stop asking, will they like me? And start asking, will I respect myself after this? This is the rebirth Nietzsche pointed to. Not in theory, in practice. You won't always get it right, you'll slip, you'll doubt. You'll want to run back to safety. But over time, something changes. You stop flinching. You stop shrinking. You start walking into rooms like you belong there, not because they said so, but because you decided so. And in that moment, You're not reacting to cancel culture. You're transcending it. Not immune, but untouchable. Not louder, but clearer. Not accepted, but respected. Because no one can cancel what you've already owned. This is what it means to be fireproof, not perfect, but real. And nothing scares the herd more than someone who cannot be managed. So, the next time you feel the urge to self-edit, pause. Ask yourself, am I dimming my light just to avoid their shadow? And if the answer is yes, you already know what Nietzsche would tell you. Burn brighter. Let's ground this in real life. You're in a meeting. You disagree with the direction. But everyone seems on board. You feel the pressure to nod, to comply. But you speak. Calmly, clearly, and the room shifts. Maybe not in your favor, but you didn't betray your voice. You're with a friend who jokes at your expense. It used to be funny. Now it stings. Instead of laughing, you say, "That crosses a line for me." The air goes tense. But so what? You just chose self-respect over group comfort. You're dating someone. They want version 2.0 of you, more agreeable, less intense. You notice yourself editing thoughts before speaking, smiling more than you feel. Then you stop. You say, "This is who I am, fully." These are small acts, but they are revolutions. They're how the will to power looks in a civilized world. Not domination, not arrogance, but deep alignment. Nietzsche's idea wasn't about taking control of others. It was about refusing to be controlled by your own fear. It was about creating the self from the inside out. He wrote, "Become who you are, not who your parents hoped you'd be, not who your followers applaud, not who your fears protect. Who you are, without filters, without scripts, without apology." And here's what's wild. When you live this way, you don't become isolated. You become magnetic, because clarity is rare, and people crave it. You walk into the office and people listen, not because you're loud, but because you don't flinch. You enter a conversation and others slow down, not because you dominate, but because your presence is steady. This is the will to power in action, centered, not scattered. Honest, not dramatic. Committed, not reactive. It's not about ego. It's about essence. You build this through choices, repetition, practice. Each time you act from truth, you prove to yourself, "I can trust me." And the more you trust yourself, the less the world can shake you. So don't wait for permission. Don't chase applause. Don't rehearse a perfect version of you that fits every room. Stand up, speak plainly, and let the discomfort burn away what's not you. Because what's left, that raw, real presence, that's fireproof. Talk is cheap. Nietzsche knew that. He didn't write to entertain. He wrote to disturb, to awaken, to force clarity. And now, it's your turn. Not to agree, but to train. To build a voice that doesn't flinch. This isn't a call to shout louder. It's a call to walk straighter. To stop outsourcing your integrity to the approval of others. To reclaim your inner arena, where courage is practiced, not performed. Here are 3 tools to help you do just that. You've broken the spell. Now it's time to build the muscle. Tool 1. The 3-second rule of truth. Every time you feel the pressure to conform, to nod, smile, agree, soften, avoid, pause. Just for 3 seconds. It sounds small, but it rewires everything. Let's say you're at a team meeting. Your boss suggests a strategy that feels off. You feel it in your gut. But your mind screams, "Don't rock the boat." Pause. 3 seconds. Breathe. Ask yourself, is silence safety or self-abandonment? Then, speak. Even if it's just a question. I wonder if there's a risk we're not seeing. You don't need to be right. You just need to be real. The point isn't confrontation, it's consciousness. That pause breaks the cycle of automatic compliance. Use it at work. Use it at dinner with family. Use it when you're about to laugh at a joke you don't find funny. It's how self-respect becomes embodied, not just admired. Tool 2. The Cancel Resistance Log. Every evening for 7 days, write down one moment when you betrayed your voice. Maybe you stayed silent during a heated debate. Maybe you posted something safe instead of something honest. Maybe you let someone cross a boundary you never named, then rewrite the moment. If I feared nothing, what would I have said? You're not rewriting reality, you're rehearsing truth. Let's say you were at a party. Someone joked about your passion, called it too intense. You laughed along. That night you write, I would have said, that passion built the life I have. I won't shrink it to make others comfortable. Over time, this rewires your instincts. You shift from reaction to readiness, from appeasement to clarity. You begin to act, not adjust. Tool 3. The mirror statement. Each morning, stand in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes, not your flaws, not your hair, not the lighting, and say, I will not outsource my identity to the crowd. Say it again and again, not as a mantra, as a message to your nervous system. This is how belief begins. Repetition under pressure. The next time your voice trembles or you feel invisible or tempted to self-edit, those words return. They don't make you fearless. They remind you that you've already chosen your side. The challenge: 7 days of radical self-honesty. Now the real test: 7 days, 7 acts of alignment, not performance, not rebellion, just presence. Here's what it looks like. 1. Speak one unscripted truth per day. Something real, not reactive. Maybe it's saying, that bothered me, or, I don't agree with that. Not to argue, but to exist fully. 2. Say no cleanly, no justification, no apology spiral. Just a clear boundary. No, that doesn't work for me. 3. Catch yourself self-editing. Whether in conversation, social media, or silence, notice when you shrink. That awareness is the first crack in the mask. 4. Stay offline for 1 hour a day. To remember what it feels like when your self-worth isn't tied to pings and likes. 5. Write a raw, unfiltered journal entry. 1 page, stream of consciousness, no audience, no edits, just truth in its native form. 6. Give a sincere compliment, not to fit in, not to be nice, but when something moves you, say it. This teaches you to speak what's true, not just what's useful. 7. Hold eye contact when you disagree. Stay in the tension, not to win, but to witness the moment without escape. A day in the life, challenge example, day 4. You wake up, mirror statement. I will not outsource my identity to the crowd. You walk into work. Your manager asks for team consensus on a rushed plan. You pause. 3 seconds. Then say, I think we're missing a key perspective. At lunch, someone makes a passive dig about your values. You don't laugh this time. You say, that felt off. I'd rather talk directly. Later you journal the whole day. You realize you didn't yell, you didn't fight, you just stopped erasing yourself. And it felt peaceful, strong, unapologetically whole. This challenge won't make you invincible, but it will make you real. You'll stop rehearsing for the crowd. You'll stop managing every word for social survival. You'll build a spine that bends for no algorithm. Because here's the truth. The most dangerous censorship isn't online. It's internal. It's when you silence yourself before anyone else gets the chance. Nietzsche didn't want you to fight the mob. He wanted you to transcend it. And that begins not with a post or a protest, but with one quiet moment of truth. So let's end this section where it really begins. What will you do? When your voice shakes, your heart races, and the room falls silent, will you perform? Or will you return to yourself? Today's your chance to decide. Picture this. You walk into a room, not louder, not tougher, not smarter, just clear. Your voice doesn't tremble, not because you memorized a script, but because you stopped apologizing for existing. You say less, but mean more. You take up space, not by force, but by presence. That is where all of this leads. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted creators, people who don't just consume culture, but shape it, challenge it, transcend it. And now, that person is you. Not someday, now. You've seen the herd, you've felt its pressure, you've learned its patterns, and now you're choosing something else, a path without guarantees, but filled with meaning, a life where you don't just react, you build, you lead. You become the kind of person who can no longer be erased. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't need more compliance, it needs more clarity. And the first step is yours. Then come back here, share what happened in the comments, tell someone else to try it. Because this isn't just a video, it's a turning point. You can keep watching, or you can start becoming. So which one are you? You already know the answer, and if you don't, that's your real work. Picture your future self, not as someone who finally made it, but as someone who is finally whole. Not perfect, but integrated. Clear spine, soft heart, fierce mind. You're not fighting the crowd anymore. You're planting flags of truth in your own soul. You're becoming the kind of person who walks into chaos and brings calm, not with domination, but with depth. This isn't just personal transformation, it's cultural repair. Because every time you show up real, you give someone else permission to do the same. And if this video spoke to you, like, share, or subscribe. Not for numbers, but to join a movement of voices who refuse to be echoes. We'll see you in the next video. But more importantly, we hope you see yourself, not the filtered version, the fireproof one.